Navigating life in this global pandemic has been a terror. Let's be honest. Long are the days where we thought this would be a blip in the radar and we were lounging in our sweatpants watching Tiger King, and the times have come where we're faced with reality, pivoting our plans and rebuilding the structure of our entire lives. Navigating this pandemic has been a nightmare, to say the least. But there's something a little extra special or scary about earning the title as a COVID bride. And that's because brides are stereotypically known to be nightmares regardless, whether that's deserved or not, hence the term bridezilla. And if you've ever planned a wedding, you probably know why. Managing familial expectations on top of budgets and excessive appointments, perfect etiquette, and more is complete chaos. You do that on top of the rest of your life. And in the middle of COVID, in the middle of this pandemic, you're not only doing all of those things, but you're also doing your best to sail the churning waters of these unprecedented times, which sometimes means starting from scratch on your big day. Now, needless to say, starting from scratch or being forced to postpone or reimagine your wedding can bring heartbreak. But something I learned in this whole process, some life lessons that I learned, are that hardship can often serve as your most teachable moments. For example, I've been engaged for 2 years and I've been with my fiance for 4 years. We have been planning our wedding for what feels like forever. And after being forced to postpone it not once, but twice, I couldn't help but feel defeated. I was heartbroken. I felt like not only months, but years of hard work that I put into this dream event had slipped right through my fingers. But when thinking about it and reflecting on the past few months, I realized I learned a lot of impactful lessons that I may not have otherwise learned. And these are lessons that you can apply to any facet of your life, not just weddings, but in all areas. So I want to share them with you. And the first one being, it's okay to say yes to yourself. And here's why. When you're planning a wedding, people's opinions are thrusted upon you faster than you can say, I do. Whether that is your friends, your family members, or other people in your lives, everybody seems to have an opinion on what this day, your day, should be. And oftentimes we oblige. This doesn't just apply to weddings though. This applies to all areas of our lives, because we often try so hard to contortion ourselves to fit into the molds that other people expect of us instead of living authentically and truly who we are. And sometimes it's okay to say no to somebody else if in turn you're saying yes to yourself, and that's important. So if you really want to go where you want to go in life, if you want to go down the path that you're paving for yourself, it's okay to disappoint others as long as you're not disappointing you. So learn to say yes to yourself and learn that it's okay to say no to other people. Lesson number 2, the best plans have contingency plans. And what I mean by this is it's okay to have a plan B. We're taught from a young age that we need to plan out the entire structure of our lives, from the first syllabus that you got when you were maybe in middle school that listed out every assignment and test for the semester, to all of the apps that we have on our phones that plan out in fine detail the structure of our lives. We're taught from a young age that planning is part of success. And although that may be true, plans change, they fail. Every COVID bride is living proof of that. And a lot of the times, we're not planning for something like this global pandemic to happen, and rightfully so. Nobody could have seen this coming. But I think we can all admit that we didn't have a plan B, regardless of where you are or what your situation is. Now, the big lesson here is that planning is essential to success. Don't get me wrong, it is, but so is being adaptable. So I'm not saying that every time you write out your weekly grocery list, you need to plan for the apocalypse, but you do need to do your best to leave room for the unexpected. And lesson number 3, loneliness is a choice. And I know what you might be thinking, and I know that feeling lonely can be really overwhelming, and in the face of trauma and heartbreak, it's perfectly natural to feel lonely. But there's so much power in community, and although you might be thinking, nobody can truly understand what I'm going through, there are people out there who do. Being a bride at the start of this new decade was hard. It felt really lonely. And for the first time in my life, I really felt like the saying, nobody understands me, really rang true. Because not only was I sheltering in place, isolated from my friends, my family, and my coworkers, but I felt like I was grieving the loss of this dream date that I had imagined for so long, all by myself. And that nobody could really understand because nobody that we knew had gone through a situation like this before. But what I learned is that there's power in community. We have devices that can just sit in the palm of our hands where we can access people from all over the world to relieve that feeling of loneliness, where we can connect with people who are going through similar situations as us, where we can join groups. You can even find an account on Instagram. There are so many ways to connect where you don't have to feel like you're alone anymore. Now, I know that digital connections don't measure up to those of interpersonal relationships that we have in our lives with our friends and our family, because those are very important. But finding people out there that are in relatable situations to you can really help relieve that feeling of loneliness, and it can introduce you to people that you might not even have crossed paths with otherwise. So when you're applying these lessons to your life, lesson number 1, it's okay to say yes to yourself. Lesson number 2, the best plans have contingency plans. And lesson number 3, loneliness is a choice. Remember that in all of this, our strength comes from struggle. And oftentimes our biggest hardships are what teach us our biggest blessings, or blessings in disguise. It's simply a matter of your perspective.